Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hi everyone, welcome to International Studies on Vernacular Architecture course. My name is Yeni Gunawan, and today we are going to talk about space and meaning in Balinese vernacular architecture and how it can be applied in the contemporary world today. Bali is an island located in the Indonesian archipelago towards the east of Java Island. It is believed that since 2000 BC, the island was already occupied by the Austronesian. Ancient historical relics showed influence from India, China, Taiwan, Southeast Asia, and Oceania. Most of Bali is mountainous. Its highest peak is Mount Agung, an active volcano with 10,300 feet above sea level in height, and this Mount Agung is also known locally as the navel of the world. Their mountainous area is hilly tropical rainforest, and at the forest there grows giant banyan trees that are held sacred by the Balinese. The main lowland is mostly towards the south with beautiful beach. The Balinese had embraced Hinduism by the 7th century. When Mahendra Datta, the mother of Erlangga, who ruled Java around 11th century, married Udayana, the Balinese king, many Javanese Hindus immigrated to Bali. And when Islam triumphed over Hinduism in Java around 16th century, Bali became a refuge for many Hindu nobles, priests, and intellectuals. Today, in Indonesia, the Balinese is the only remaining community that hold Hinduism as their beliefs. Though their Hinduism is blended with Buddhism, animism, and magical beliefs and practice. The Balinese create their architecture based on these beliefs. Studies on Balinese architecture mention a traditional architect known as Undagi, who follows a palm leaf manuscript of architectural rules which takes into consideration the principal tenets of Balinese Hinduism. These Balinese architecture rules are known as Asta Kosala Kosali. According to Popodanes, Ramsayer, Paul Oliver, and Alit, the main principle of Asta Kosala Kosali is the acknowledgement of human entity, the microcosm, or in local language Buana Alit, as part of the universe at large, the macrocosm or Buana Agung. In recognizing microcosm and macrocosm, Asta Kosala Kosali seeks to achieve balance amongst the three elements of life, God, human beings, and nature, popularly known as the three causes of happiness or Trihita Karana. The Balinese believe that true happiness might be obtained when one establishes harmony with God, other human beings, and the natural environment. And thus, it is the task of an Undagi to keep the architecture in the state of balance between God, human beings, and environment to achieve happiness. Therefore, based on beliefs, Balinese vernacular architecture always considered aspects of climate, natural condition, and social life in the arrangement of spatial pattern, construction structures, and the selection of building materials by utilizing available materials in Bali in accordance with the condition of the existing infrastructure. The spatial pattern follows natural environment orientation vertically towards Mount Agung and sea, and horizontally according to sunrise and sunset direction. Mount Agung or Kaja in their language is perceived as Ulu, which means top, front, natural, spiritual, and closer to God, while the ocean or Kelot is perceived as Teben, which means downstream, bottom, back, and death spirits. As can be seen in the picture, it is interesting to note that the orientation is based on the mountain, not north-south. So if you are in North Bali, then the sacred space, the mountain, is at the south, and the ocean towards the north, and vice versa. And then the Balinese interpret these directions and orientations into Sangamandala, or the 9-zone concept in architecture. As can be seen in the picture, Utama, for the most sacred space, should be directed towards Mount Agung as the holiest mountain, and Nista, the opposite, should be directed towards the ocean. Here is a typical Balinese dwelling compound, usually occupied by an extended family. The compound consists of several buildings with different functions, and the hierarchical arrangement followed the orientation of the direction as described above. Family shrine, most sacred space, Utama, the highest hierarchy, placed in the orientation towards the mountain, Kajakangin position. Living quarters for sleeping, working, eating, receiving guests. The human area is Madhya, surrounding the courtyard. The buildings for living quarters are called Umamatan, Balai Sikepat, Balai Tiang Sangam, and Balai Sakenam. And granaries, kitchen, and gates, considered to have the lowest hierarchy, Nista, were placed farthest from the shrine towards the ocean, in the Kelotkau position or in the Teben area. Other than Nawasanga zone concept, traditional Balinese architect Undagi also follows rules to measure spaces and compound using human body. For example, one hasta is the length from elbow to tip of the middle finger, ranging 45 to 56 centimeters, while one depa is the length measured from the tip of the finger to the tip of the other finger of two arms outstretched. And there were standard rules to measure the distance between each building within the scope of a Balinese vernacular house plan, as shown in the picture. For example, distance between Balai Dangin and Balai Dau is Sri, and there is a specific way of measuring Sri using foot, starting left then right and so on, as can be seen in the picture. An important feature to note in Balinese compound is the courtyard and the gate. The courtyard is the communal outdoor space right in the middle of the compound where dwellers' activities centered around. This courtyard is called Natah. The arrangement was truly communicative, where indoor and outdoor activities were proportionally met. The courtyard then served as the center of orientation. This concept of Nata as the center of orientation was derived from a swastika pattern in Balinese culture, whose central axis is emptiness. The compound is enclosed by a brick wall with openings as gate. According to Professor Oke, the gate is called Pamasuan or Pamadalan. The term means exit. Pamasuan or Pamadalan is the only gate which means exit, not referred to as an entrance. Pamasuan can be either house gate or yard gate or temple gate or gate for a village. This gives a sense that a Pamasuan or Pamadalan is the means by which the occupants of the house or temple or shrine or village goes out. Balinese architecture recognizes two types of gate: Candi Benta split gate for shrines and palaces, and Paduraksa or Kori roof gate for residentials. The shape of traditional Balinese buildings is basically determined by the number of supporting poles. The smallest type for residential buildings is Sakapat, or a 4-pillar building. The enlarged types are 6 pillars called Sakanam, 8 pillars called Sakatus, 9 pillars called Tiang Sangsa, and 12 pillars called Sakaroras. Usually, buildings for working, eating, ceremonial purposes, or receiving guests use but not limited to 4 pillars or Balai Sakapat and 6 pillars or Balai Sakanam without walls. while the one for living quarters are starting from 6 pillars up to 12 pillars building, which have walls to create room for sleeping. The walls are made of clay. All Balinese buildings, traditional buildings, roofs are of thatch or palm leaves or tile roofs. Other than orientation, Trihita Karana also point out that the environment macrocosm are made of 5 basic elements: water, liquid, air, wind, fire, light, earth, solid, and ether, space. The 5 basic elements come in the form of 2 complementary opposites, the material, skala, and the immaterial, niskala, as stated in Ramseyer book. So the Balinese has many shrines to honor natural elements. The shrines vary in shapes and scale, which denotes the different level of niskala, the immaterial. For example, the most sacred is Satkayangan shrines, which are believed to be the primary shrines in Bali, and there are only 6 Satkayangan shrines in Bali. And then there is Pura Desa, or village shrines, or Pura for the keeper of the village, and there is also Pelinggi for the keeper of the environment, for example, the keeper of river, spring, lake, and etc. And there is also Pamerajan or Sangha for the house or known as family shrines. One of the most notable Satkayangan shrine is Pura Luhur Uluwatu, located at an altitude of 97 meters above sea level on the southwest tip of the island of Bali, on a steep and high rock platform that juts into the sea in the Pecatu traditional village. The primary shrine is believed by Hindus to be the pillars of the 9 compass. In the front of the temple, there is a small forest called Alas Kekeran, which functions as a buffer for the sanctity of the temple. And this is an example of a main village shrine or Pura Desa in Ubud, Bali, called Pura Gunung Lebah. It is located in the river valley and dedicated as a place of worship for Sanghyang Betari Danuring Mount Batur, the goddess of Mount Batur, and is said to be the pioneer of the existence of Ubud village. So each shrine has its own purpose. Aside from the shrines, Balinese are well known for their stone carvings. Still related to macrocosm, the Balinese believes that every stone has its own characters, and hence each stone should be treated differently. Some should be located above the human head and some close to the lower part of the human feet, and each stone carvings has its own meaning. Thus, the architectural rules written in the lontar also include the materials used for carvings, the design and placement of the carvings, and as well as their meanings. Here we will look at 2 stone carvings, Karang Boma and Karang Asti, as an example, but there are more than 2 stone carvings type in Balinese vernacular architecture. Karang Boma is carvings in the form of a face resembling giant with long fangs and bulging eyes. Karang Boma philosophy is for neutralizing those who come into the complex or compound, and a symbol to eliminate the bad characteristics of giant. So when entering, one only carry divine attributes. Karang Boma is also believed as a spirit ornament, keeping sacred areas and sacred buildings from negative energies coming from outside. So Karang Boma, as a sacred carvings, only allowed to be carved above the entrance of the building or the main gate for sacred shrine, or in the gate of the priest's residence or the residence of a noble family. The second carvings we discussed is Karang Asti, which are placed in the lower part of the building, or Niste Angga in Balinese. Karang Asti shapes takes the form of an elephant head with a trunk and ivory tusk with big round eyes. It symbolizes a strong animals that have clairvoyant abilities because they are able to hear carefully using both big ears. It is also an ornament that symbolizes the mountains, which is the habitat of elephants and other four-legged animals that exist in the world. So Karang Asli's placement in the lower part signifies a strong foothold for the gate or the compound or the building. Thus, while considering Trihita Karana in designing of a building complex along with its spatial layout and in choosing of the construction structures and building materials, an undagi must carefully take into consideration not only climatic and environmental conditions, but also social and cultural and spiritual conditions. Now we have arrived at the second part of the lecture. If now we know the meaning behind Balinese vernacular architecture, then what can we do in the context of contemporary world today? Let's take a look at an example of what the traditional architect, the undagi, do for Bali's contemporary context. This example is drawn from a field research done in 2012. The undagi discussed here has received the Balinese Master Builder title since 1990s and also has a master degree in business administration. He applied those Balinese architectural rules in the design of a Royal Pitamaha Resort in Ubud. The resort is located in Kedewatan village, Ubud Gianyar region in a huge site. The site starts from the street and ends at a river called Ayung River, down the slope approximately 80 meters height difference. There is also a natural waterfall and few rice fields in the north and tropical rainforest in the east side. In designing the layout of the resort, the undagi respects the existing environment, the macrocosm. He keeps the river and the natural waterfall as it were, as well as the trees and plants as many as possible, especially the huge trees and plants. The buildings are placed in relation with the contours of the slope, the trees and the river and the rice fields. The river and rice field became the main view of the buildings. Connection to the river 80 meters down the slope is achieved by large swimming pool in the middle, an organic linear lagoon stretching alongside the river at the bottom, and the balcony which directly captures the curve of the river. In addition, the undagi uses the potential of the environment to enhance the resort's atmosphere and activity. For example, the water from waterfalls is used for Holy Spring water pool, and the river is also used for rafting. The working rice fields acting as views from bungalows and so on. As the result, the connection of the resort and the environment of the site are strong. Moreover, most of the materials chosen are Balinese vernacular architecture materials. The undagi used Balinese stone, bamboo, wood, and thatch roofs, and most of these materials are from the surrounding Gianyar village. In this way, the undagi managed to lower the energy used for transporting building materials, and the four Balinese stones, Batu Parastaru, Selekarang, Klating, and Sarwagenap, are carefully chosen because of its characteristics, textures, and motifs. The stones are carved excessively in the resort gates and walls. As mentioned before, in Astakosala Kosali, there are certain rules on the placement of the stone that suited their characters. Therefore, in this Royal Pitamaha Resort, some stone or karang are crafted and placed to suit the motifs, textures, and symbols of the stone. Most of the construction workers are Balinese from surrounding villages, except the workers for the thatch roof, which require greater skills. The thatcher are from neighboring village. Because the construction workers are also Balinese, They know the motifs of the stone and also know how to weave the bamboo. In this way, the Undagi has successfully sustained a local craftsmanship which closely related to Balinese culture as well as environment. The Undagi also still follows the mountain, sea, and Nawasanga spatial orientation for Balinese architecture rules mentioned before. The design of the main circulation of Royal Pitamaha Resort divides the Kaja mountain villas and Kelot sea villas and ends in the Natah placed in the middle of the site, acting as entrance, public space, and communal space. The Undagi also placed the main shrines in the Kaja Kangin direction towards the mountain near the river. There are also several smaller shrines placed more dispersed to honor the huge trees and the stones, the macrocosm. Also, there are smaller shrines or pelingi to worship the keeper of the water near the waterfalls and the river. In this way, the Undagi skillfully combines the identity of the site, the slope, the river, and the spring, as well as the unique atmosphere of the tourists that stayed at the resort, as well as still connected to the immaterial aspect of the environment and spatial orientation. Another aspect that is considered by the Undagi is by enhancing villagers' lives. He creates connection with the surrounding villages by designing 3 street junctions between the main circulation of the resort and the roads to Balinese villages. By creating this infrastructure, the Undagi allows easier access to the village and eventually it will affect the development of the villagers' economy. In this way, the Undagi participates in the creation of sustainable architecture, not only environment, but also socio-culturally, and it's in parallel with tourism. Now we have arrived at the end of the lecture. Throughout the lecture, we have discussed how Trihitakarana acknowledgement of immaterial aspects of environment contributes to the creation of meaning in Balinese vernacular architecture. We also learn how an Undagi creates a balanced relationship between the buildings and their environment in contemporary world today, and how it can be a way to sustain not only environment but also culture. And here are some references that you might be interested to look further. Thank you. See you in the next lecture.